What's up, gang? Welcome to Room and Board. My name is Chris George, and today we have another episode of Table Talk Back. And the crows and birds are flying, where we revisit a previous Table Talk video highlighting the community's responses. As always, thanks to everyone who commented on the previous video. If you missed it, I'll leave a link to it in the description below so you know what we're using as our jumping off point for this conversation. If you're brand new to the series, basically I'll pick a topic that's about something to do with the board gaming hobby, share my initial thoughts, and then compile and distill and condense all the responses, eliminating repeats, etc. for this Table Talk Back follow-up video. And that way, we can all participate in the conversation. Eagle-eyed viewers may notice I'm not in my normal setup today. That's because I'm out in nature in beautiful Nova Scotia, staring right across the ocean at Rodney Smith's house. He's right there, he's waving, slowly inching my way until I'll be filming on his porch, in his gaming room, and even right beside him as he's asleep. No, of course I'm kidding. I'm actually on the other side of Nova Scotia, so my telescope isn't doing what I want it to do. But you'll most likely be able to hear the screams of nature as we go through this video, and so I hope it doesn't distract us too much from the topic at hand, which is this. Do board games have a finite lifespan? Or is there a set number of plays, however large or small, where you feel like you're done with the game? Now, we had a bunch of great responses, and of course with this topic, the mind tends to go towards legacy games, but more about using that legacy experience as an expectation. As Dominic says on Finite Lifespans, chess and go. Am I a joke to you? Which is a great joke that I just wanted to start off with, but he goes on to say, I gravitate towards campaign-style games, so I can usually at least see the end ahead of time. Makes the knowledge that I won't want to play it anymore a little less painful, and by that time, I know I've played the game to its fullest potential. Which is absolutely true. When you purchase a legacy game, and we talked about this a little bit in the last video, you're getting a defined value. The expectation is clearly there. You'll play X amount of games. That's it. And while there are some games that offer ways to reset themselves to square one, I find, at least with my experiences, I don't really need them, or even really want them. You usually do experience the game to its full potential on the first pass through, or at least you should, since the legacy journey is often anchored in story and discovery, in addition to the gameplay. But even more than that, legacy games provide a great reference point for this sort of discussion. As David says, Pandemic Legacy Season 1 was the eureka moment for me. I realized that most of my games never hit the table more than a dozen or so times. So, if Pandemic Season 1 guaranteed 12 plus gaming sessions, it was absolutely worth the $50. Since then, I've mostly only been getting campaign, legacy, episodic games specifically because 1, it guarantees I will be motivated to get them back to the table, and 2, each time I play them, they will offer a relatively unique experience. Of course, now I have a stupid amount of campaign games all vying for my attention, so... And there's a danger there for sure. I've definitely found myself in the same situation, and I'm sure a lot of you have as well. But it's a helpful bar to put into perspective. More the number of plays you need for a specific title to be worth it, not necessarily playing to its full potential. Or maybe making it worth it is achieving that full potential for some of you. For many of my games, I know that they've got more than 12 plus games in their life cycle. But having that as a bar, knowing that I was happy with the amount of plays that I got from Pandemic Legacy, makes me feel happy with my other purchases, and also provides that justification when I want to purchase more. It can be a good and a bad thing. And I think it is worth noting that the major way a lot of us extend the life cycle of our games is by purchasing new ones and by cycling through that collection. As Marcella notes, I think the key is to cycle your games. At our game group, we usually split into 2 games. We try to do an old game, like Settlers of Catan, and a newer game, like Photosynthesis. I played Catan a few days ago for the first time in a year and had forgotten how fun it was. We had a blast. And that's awesome. I can't tell you how many times someone suggests a game Codenames comes to mind, something that I feel like I overplayed a bunch when I first got it and kind of got sick of it, to be honest. But when I actually pull it out again after a long while, I'm surprised by the enjoyment that it provides. And that goes back to the idea that our opinions do ebb and flow. Often games end up in our collection for a reason, and that reason is because we enjoy them, or because we got ourselves a great deal on a sale. And by not playing them into the ground, as something I feel I've almost done with Codenames, gives us the chance to revisit them when you feel like it. But I am curious if this actually extends the number of plays, or just extends the time it takes to get to whatever that number is. And you just don't notice it as much because you have so much stuff in between. I'm not sure. It feels like it should do both. It's like eating a meal. It's best to stop before you gorge yourself and throw up and lose a taste for it altogether. But sir, it's only a wafer thin. But on the other hand, what would happen if you didn't have a large collection? Is the bar lower for being hit? Does this cycling aspect add plays to the game? This is also one of the reasons why I still love Catan. It was my gateway game, so I will always have a particular fondness for it, since it got me into the hobby. But what blew me away was the variable board setup. The board that changed every single time. And I think the feeling is out there that if games provide you with these sorts of elements, they then become more desirable because they have the prospect of longevity. As Isaac says, quite a few of my games have multiple ways to play it again, such as new characters, new factions, new map layouts, or new campaigns to lengthen them considerably. Though I do think there comes a point where even more options won't make you want to run the same campaign over and over. So much so that I now limit myself to 4 new games a year, and I'll still have enough games to play for the rest of my life. And it's true, there is this balance. With a lot of Kickstarters these days, there'll be characters upon characters upon characters, but these do only go so far in making it feel fresh. I know I've played through Diablo 3 a bunch of times with different character classes, but in essence, it's pretty much the same game. And that's why I think something like Gloomhaven is so great in terms of this discussion of finite lifespan or not, because it forces you to retire your characters partway through the game and pick a new one. It's giving you the opportunity to continue your story with a different play style to keep that gameplay experience fresh. So not only are the scenarios changing, but the characters are as well. But then it also gives you branching story paths, which will make you want to return and experience it again with, I think, significant enough differences that will make you go through it once more, as opposed to just offering a linear path that you can play with Dwarf and the same linear path that you can play with an Elf. Marismusen82 highlights, I think the war game genre deserves a mention here. If you have a regular opponent, medium complex war games age like a fine wine, as you both refine your strategies and get more accustomed. Oh my God, these birds. I gotta put up some decals or something. They're still okay. As you both refine your strategies and get more accustomed with variance nuances. My friend and I could play Hannibal and Hamilcar by Phalanx Games endlessly, were it not for the fact that it takes 5 to 6 hours to complete a single session, because the quality of each session improves concurrent with our greater understanding. Also, when playing with the same group, there are meta-narratives that get richer the more the game is played. Events and betrayals from previous sessions increase the intensity of future ones. And that's a great point. This is why something like chess still remains playable. And while I know it's not a war game, it has the same parallel of one side versus the other in a set, confined board with various rules, and highlights the depth of understanding that can develop in a complex game with 2 people who play it consistently with one another. And it may be that one particular genre is more playable than others, in which case it makes me wonder which genre would be the most replayable. Which genre would age like a fine wine in the way that these war games have the potential for. Because not all genres are created equal. As Jeffrey points out, I think it's fair to consider the type of game. It feels generally fine to replace or collect smaller filler or card games, since there isn't as much investment. However, I really try to select my heavier games that won't get as much table time with greater consideration. How appealing is this game to me? Is it too much like games I already own, etc.? Then I feel like I'm getting value out of that game, even knowing it probably won't be something I'll want to play forever. And this is really interesting to me. I was talking with my friend Yaz last night about the game Coalition, speaking of Phalanx games, which I picked as my first pick of the week in the first crowdfunding countdown video that I did. And I was talking to him about it, and I was saying that I might regret having not backed it at that time. It was about $70 Canadian for the base pledge. And in retrospect, I think it was a pretty decent deal because of all the bonuses that they ended up throwing in. And he loves that era, and so I know I would have been playing it with him. He's the person who I normally play chess with, since chess has come up a lot in this discussion. I just don't know if I would play it enough for it to be worth it. And it's not that I wasn't interested in playing it enough, but I didn't envision it as an option to play frequently. It being on the suggested menu of the evening for my particular gaming groups. When we talk about cycling our games, and I love having a large collection for many reasons, this being one of them, there still has to be that element of opportunity. I don't mind having a game that I haven't played for a year, as long as I've been able to offer it up as a choice for the group's evening entertainment. And maybe this doesn't have anything to do with whether or not a game has a finite lifespan. Maybe that has more to do with the optimal size of a collection and when to purchase new games. But since I've already recorded it, there's nothing I can do about it. See, I don't edit these videos. Nope, I leave it all in. Silences, drink breaks and all. I mean, also there's no hard and fast rule. Should we wait until we grow tired of our games before we allow ourselves to get a new one? Absolutely not. No, then you can never cycle your games either. I think it's great to want to experience new things, as long as we get around to experiencing them, but that's a tangent for a different video. To get back to the matter at hand, the thing that seemed to resonate with the majority of people when discussing finite lifespans is the element of interactivity. Either a game has some random elements combined with multiple options for factions or individual special powers, or a game that has the focus on interactivity, the social element, the meta-narrative that can be created. This is one of the reasons why I love Rising Sun so much, because I feel it capitalizes on the social element that Catan presents and also gives it sort of that depth of strategy. As Aaron says, either the game needs to provide a social outlet for the players, or it needs to have shared moments that are memorable. I know this doesn't matter to all people. Some just enjoy pummeling their opponent into submission, although I'm guessing that for those people, all their games have a short lifespan, as people are reluctant to play any sort of game with them. Fair point, Aaron. But I think the shared experience is what draws many to want to replay a game. For me, chess is one of those games that should have a finite lifespan, but social elements can extend the lifespan. While yes, the theoretical combinations of plays are astronomical, usually people tend to reuse the same openings and traps, so gameplay does get stale. However, if you join a club or group or whatever, the enjoyment you get is more likely from the time spent between the games, and the game just becomes an excuse to get together. I think this is a wonderful sentiment, and is almost a teaser for next week's video, which is filmed. I just need to watch it through and edit a bit. But the wonderful part of this hobby, at least for me, and I'd hazard to say for a lot of us, is to be able to use it as an excuse to spend time with one another. Whether your collection is 5 games or 500 games, naturally the people with whom you play are going to create different experiences every time. Or maybe not. There's also something to be said about the relaxing sameness that a familiar favorite can bring. In any case, this is what makes our hobby unique. The coming together of individuals in this way. The communities that can be built and fostered. And maybe in that sense, who cares if a game has reached its finite lifespan? There's always going to be another one. And more importantly, there will always be people around with whom you'll want to create experiences. And what better place to do so than around a gaming table? I think that's kind of a nice place to leave off. Thank you so much to everyone who keeps tuning in. You are all fantastic. Don't forget to leave a like on your way out, and maybe drop a comment if you can think of the next topic for our next Table Talk video, whenever that may be. Anyway, that's it. Get out of here. My name's Chris George. I don't have a catchphrase, but thanks for watching.